It's a magical thing that happens when we are vulnerable and we share our story. When COVID hit, I did an article on a 14-year-old who was suicidal and was hesitant to take antidepressants. And the minute I told her that there should never be any shame if you need to seek help for medication, I told her that I went on medication, and immediately her eyes lit up and she's like, "What, Dr. Monica, you took Lexapro?" It's like magic happens. And it's such a beautiful place to be in this world when you can be vulnerable.
What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others.
In case you missed it.
This is the 100th episode of the I Spark Change podcast. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to share my top 20 highlights from the first 100 episodes. Thank you for being here every week on the I Spark Change podcast.
Available everywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome back, Impact Heroes. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to our latest I Spark Change social impact hero, and she is a special one indeed. Our guest today is someone who's synonymous with empowerment, compassion, and expertise. She's first and foremost an extremely devoted single mother of two beautiful daughters, and beyond that, she's a relentless advocate for mental health and grief support who can speak from her own experience with depression and grief from losing her spouse. Her powerful advocacy has illuminated the path for those navigating these complex terrains, offering solace and hope. She is truly a beacon of empathy and societal well-being. I guess you can see why she's going to be a guest. In addition, she's a prolific medical writer for a mental health platform and a keynote speaker who brings a unique and transformative perspective to her audience. And her story is an inspiration to those seeking equilibrium between personal and professional life, among other things. Her articles and writings serve as a trusted resource, rendering complex healthcare information accessible, which is very helpful in today's confusing world. And you may have seen her familiar face gracing your screen in a Good RX commercial. Please welcome the authentic, driven, empowering, and amazing Dr. Monica.
Thank you so much, Rick, for that beautiful, heartfelt introduction. It's an absolute honor to be here on your podcast.
Oh, well, you're quite welcome. And remember, it's your story. I was just sharing some of it with our audience, but I always want to honor my guests by letting everyone know how amazing you are from the top of the episode.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. So we have you on the show, Dr. Monica, because here at iSpark Change, we see you as someone who is spreading positive change in the world, someone who is making a difference, whose actions have a positive effect on humanity. And that's who we call a social impact hero. And by our definition, it's an acronym, HERO, and we'll possibly get to that through our conversation. But the first question I have for you and all our guests here on the podcast is, do you see yourself as a hero?
Wow, what a powerful question. I believe there is a hero in all of us and that we are a hero to all our stories. There is a Sanskrit word called dharma. And from Hindu and Buddhist teachings, dharma means life's purpose. And I think for me, I didn't feel like a hero until I started doing my dharmic work, my life's purpose work, which was primarily turning pain into purpose. And I feel, Rick, there's so many different faces of heroes. For example, a hero can be someone who makes a stranger smile. A hero can be someone who is vulnerable and sharing their story. And literally, it just takes impacting one life to feel like a hero.
I completely love your definition or your answer, Dr. Monica, because that's exactly what we talk about at iSpark Change. We talk about that, have to leap tall buildings or, or have super strength to be a hero, but it's doing the everyday things, as you described it, right? The smiling at a stranger or, helping one person. As one of my mentors would say, the acronym HOPE of help one person every day. And if you just do that, then you're heroic, which I think fits with what with what you're all about. Share with our audience where that comes from, because you say that you didn't, that wasn't always the case for you, right? That you weren't living your
Yeah.
dharma. So how did that come about? Share, kind of that heroic origin story.
Yeah. So, in 2011, my life turned upside down. My husband passed away from cancer. I now found myself all of a sudden a single mom to two babies, felt so alone and broken, and had to navigate finding a job, selling my home, moving to a new city. And I think you can say that I hit rock bottom. And, I battled high functioning depression for several years and I just felt lost. And one day, it was in 2018, I met a woman named Alice, and Alice will have forever changed my life. Alice was a host of a podcast called Smashing the Stigma, and she was moved by my story. And she said, Dr. Monica, I need to get you on my podcast. Now, Rick, I had never done any type of public speaking before in my life. So I didn't even know how to talk, especially on a podcast. But something that night sparked in me saying, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do this interview. Even if I do this interview in tears, which is what I did, but if I could just change one life and one person listening to my story, it gives them hope, then I'll do it. And that was the beginning of me starting my work as a mental health and grief advocate.
So thank you for sharing that, because obviously it's a lot easier now. I'm sure it was very challenging, at the time, even, however many years later.
Yeah.
um, losing a loved one is never easy for anyone. Um, so I've heard you talk about acceptance, right? About grief and acceptance. What was really it's one thing to share your story and hope that it's going to help others. And I think that in many ways can help with our own healing, right? Because we see how the impact that it can have, and that it can be beneficial. If if you're in this difficult place, if someone's in this difficult place and they're struggling or depressed or anxious, or they're going through some challenges, how can they get to that level of acceptance from what they went through? How was it for you
Yeah.
that you were able to get there?
Great question. It took time. So it it's been about 12 years now for me. And it's not until I took step into my spiritual path is when I finally got to acceptance. But the first 7 to 8 years, I had to go through what we call Western treatments, which is, grief counseling, group counseling, traditional therapy. I was on medications for several years. I took antidepressants. And, you know, often say use the entire toolbox when it comes to mental health. Reach out to doctors, reach out for medications, reach out to therapists, and give yourself time. There's no set table or set timing for your grief journey. What could take me 7 years can take someone 3 years or 15 years. I think the most important thing is to give yourself grace and time. I think when you get to the very last stage of your grief journey, which is acceptance, accepting what has happened, it is what it is when your heart opens up and you come to peace with that this has happened. and you no longer question why me. But it takes so much inner work, which I've been doing for the last several years. Probably the last 4 years, I've been doing so much inner healing work with my spiritual teacher, Priya Jain, and coming to realize that what happened to me was just an experience that I had to have. My soul had to have this experience here on earth. And, for the longest time, I questioned why me, but I've gotten to the point where I no longer question why me.
And in essence, I guess, it sounds like to me you've been able to view what happened, and tell me if this is accurate. You've been able to view it more objectively
Yeah.
and less emotionally. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. I've been able to, I think once I got onto my spiritual path, I was able to detach from my story.
Hmm.
Where when I publicly speak, I speak about a woman named MK, which is my initials, Monica Krishnan, but I'm no longer attached to the emotions of, what I was feeling.
Hmm.
But that is because of all the inner work that I've been doing. And it was literally different a year ago. Like I would still have a hard time, and I'm still always going to have a hard time talking about things like this because grief never goes away, Rick. Grief is something that you hold on to for the rest of your life,
Hmm.
but it changes. It changes as you evolve as a person, so does your grief. And it turns into love, it turns into this beautiful memory that you had. But remember, it took me 12 years to get to
Hmm.
this beautiful spiritual space of accepting that this was just part of Monica's story, one of the chapters of Monica's story.
Yeah. So knowing, and you're in a better place now. So kind of a difficult question I'm going to ask you, if I may.
Yeah.
If knowing where you are now and looking back, so knowing the person that you've become now and where you are now and the people you've been able to help and how your story has helped others and so forth, knowing that, would you want to change what had happened?
That's a very difficult question. You know, I don't think I would want to have lost my husband because he was my husband and he was the father of my children. It has not been easy for my children to grow up without their father. It has not been easy for our family of 4 to have turned into a family of 3. But what I know that it's made me such a strong person. I didn't know I had this kind of resilience or strength. I know that whatever happens to us in life is destined, it's written. I do often think about what my life would be like if it was still the same. Would I still be would I be doing this type of work? Would I be in my dharmic role if my husband had not passed away? Would I be writing a children's book in the near future? I don't know. So to answer your question, I I think I would, of course, wish him to still be here because he was very special man, for me and my children.
Yeah, and I know it was a difficult question. I do appreciate you answering it because I think it speaks to, well, one, the power of love and having a partner and everything, um and I understand the challenges that go with that, and two, that us becoming, living our dharmic role and becoming the best version of ourselves, as long as the way I see it, Dr. Monica, is that as long as whatever happens in our life, if we continue to pursue that, then we're honoring what has happened in our past,
Yeah.
whether it be a death or a tragedy or something else, whatever it be, that we're at least honoring that. And so that's what I see that you've done in your life is honor, is honor what had happened, and with everything that you've done so far.
Yeah, and also think, Rick, that what spirituality has taught me, that all these things that happen to us in life, like losing a loved one or not getting that job or that divorce, these are simply things that we are here to experience in life while we're here on earth. But I know for me, for many years, I felt broken. I felt broken, but the wisdom that I've learned over time is we're all whole. We're all whole. We are born into this world whole and we leave this world whole. So I think it's just such an important message to remind whoever's listening, when life happens, storms happen, you are going to feel broken and it is going to be hard, but you just have to remind yourself that you're whole and, yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, a beautiful reminder, because, and even in your story, from what I gather, what you shared is that originally it seems like there was um, uh, external things that were helping with what you had gone through, right? You're depressed, external thing, taking medication, or external things. And then once you went more internal and spiritual and started working internally, then that's where a lot of the the progress, if you will, for lack of a better word, but the moving forward and really living that purpose has come from. Would you say that's accurate, and that really working on the internal self as opposed to looking for things external to help?
Yeah, I had to find Monica again. Monica was lost, during all this stuff that was happening. And I had to kind of find for such a long time, I felt, like I said, broken. I didn't know where my place was in society. And I just had to rediscover who Monica was, aside from being a wife, aside from being a mother, aside from being a pharmacist. Who is Monica at her core essence, her spirit? And I was able to really go inward and find her again and have her shine her light out for herself and also for everyone around her, especially her 2 daughters.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just about to ask about your daughters, because I know, how important they are in your life, or at least I can tell. Obviously, you wanted to find, who Monica was for yourself and for them. And I just mentioned about you doing internal work as opposed to, looking for things externally. But I'm guessing that they played a big role in helping you to find yourself again, and to really work on yourself.
absolutely. They are my 2 biggest inspirations in life. They are my why, my reason to wake up in the morning during the first few years of my husband's death. When you're battling high functioning depression, you look all put together and no one knows that you're really crying for help inside. It is my daughters who saw me on the bathroom floor crying and, just grieving and wiping mommy's tears. And I remember like sitting in the bathroom, I'm like, how can I create a better life for me and my daughters in all this darkness? And then I remember just looking into their eyes and I'm like, they are my light. They are my reason to just push through this storm, wipe my tears, and keep going. And today they both celebrate me on Mother's Day and Father's Day.
Mm. I love that. That's great. That's fantastic. And I'm sure you played, that role for both of them, right? For the past decade. So you talked about purpose, right? You talked about it from the beginning, and really living in your purpose. So for our acronym, H is honors their purpose, because the purpose is what defines you. It's how you show up in the world. It's the foundation of what you do. That's what we consider, a big component of being a social impact hero. So how have you been honoring that purpose now that you're really living it in your life?
I have been just very honored for all these different opportunities that are coming my way through the work of mental health. So, as a clinical pharmacist, I work in a community setting. So, I get to see patients first, like in the consultation room who are struggling. I get to tell them my story. I get to just, educate them, share the science behind mental health versus physical health. And as a medical writer, I actually get to write real patient case scenarios for a mental health blog and share the importance of breaking the stigma on mental health and grief. So it's been an honor to use my platform as a clinician and as a patient myself to spread awareness.
And without even realizing it, you described the E in hero, which is engages audience in their mission, because you're sharing it with others, you're allowing them to understand, and you're kind of uniting one another, both of you in that cause of spreading mental health awareness. So in in your work and in your writing and everything, what is the obviously your story sounds like it's a big inspiration for your writing, but where else do you derive inspiration for your writing?
My patients, the patients that come through the pharmacy. All my writing that I do for my medical writing are based on real patient case scenarios. When COVID hit, I did an article on an ER physician who was struggling. I did an article on a 14-year-old teenage girl who was suicidal and was hesitant to take antidepressants. And the minute I told her that there should never be any shame if you need to seek help for medication, I told her that I went on medication, and immediately her eyes lit up and she's like, "What, Dr. Monica, you took Lexapro?" And it's just such a beautiful thing that happens, Rick. It's like a magical thing that happens when we are vulnerable and we share our story. It's like our
Mhm.
heart opens up and it unites strangers, right?
Yeah.
These are people I don't know. They walk into the pharmacy for medical care, and the minute you're vulnerable and you open up your story, it's like magic happens. And it's such a beautiful place to be in this world when you can be vulnerable.
You're truly living our hero moniker, because I'll share with you, Monica, but an R in hero is ripples your message to others to spread positive change. And it's our life stories that connect us all, and our beautiful flawsomeness, as we called. We're all flawed, we're all awesome. And I feel it's our duty to share those lessons that we've learned along the way in the service to others. And the O is opens your heart to the world by being authentic and being vulnerable and allowing yourself to connect with others at a deeper level, right? At that heart and soul level. That's the connection that really has an impact, and the connection that makes a difference in, I feel, on both sides, because you're helping them to heal and helping them along their journey. And then at the same time, you're reaping the benefits of healing and moving along in your own journey.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you 100%. But there is this other Sanskrit word called seva. Seva means to be of service to others. But as you are being of service to others, it does come back to you because it brings back this feeling of healing for yourself. You're self healing yourself when you are helping others. And I wanted to share this beautiful quote that I came across by Dr. Carolyn Leaf. And
Yeah,
so
I
we've been
know who Dr. Leaf. Yeah, I'm familiar with her work.
talking about purpose, and this is the true definition for me for dharmic work. Your purpose is not the thing that you do. It's the thing that happens to others when you do what you do.
That's so true. That is so
Right?
true. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for showing that. We'll make sure to we tag her in the episode for you sharing her quote.
And to me, like when someone feels a certain way because of what you've done, That's the true meaning. Like you've moved that other person, their soul has been touched.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you've touched a lot of souls. So share, one question we always ask on the podcast is about a spark moment. And a spark moment are these moments in life where our actions or the actions of another have a ripple effect that goes far beyond the initial act. So you might say when Alice, I believe it was, asked you to be on her podcast, that was a spark moment for you, that had an impact and helped set you on a journey to you know share your story and be an advocate for mental health awareness. Um, so share an example of a spark moment where either you impacted someone or someone impacted you that you didn't realize it at the time, but then as things have progressed, that was a spark moment that has had a much bigger impact.
Yeah, I have a few stories, but one that comes to my mind is probably a couple years ago. A good friend of mine, my friend Raj, called me up and he said, "Hey, listen, there's this woman. She's in her 40s and she recently lost her husband. Do you think you can help her?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I picked up the phone and I called this woman, complete stranger, and come to find out, her story was very similar to mine, same age. She had two babies. Her husband died suddenly, and she was in a state of shock. And come to find out after my conversation with her, which was just a beautiful, soulful conversation of me just listening to her and me sharing my story. We cried on the phone, but I found out that she was not answering anybody's phone calls. She didn't want to talk to anybody, but she picked up my phone call.
Mm.
And at that moment, I thought to myself, wow, I just dialed a complete stranger. A complete stranger took my call. We had a 20-minute conversation and it united us. I've never met this woman. She's never met me. But that was, for me, one of the most powerful things where I did not hesitate. I was like, yes, how can I help this woman? And I think that's when I realized, like, whoa, what just happened? Like,
Mhm.
like, and it filled my heart that I could be there for her because when I was going through that, I did not have that. So I realized that I want to be that person for someone because I did not have that.
You were a hero for her in that moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful example. Thank you very much for sharing it, Dr. Monica, because it I think it really amplifies for our audience that these moments come all the time. And we might not realize it in the time. You just do what you feel is right. Oh, sure, I'll speak to her. Your friend asks you, you say, sure, I'll speak to her. But it oftentimes isn't until later, or sometimes much later, where we realize the impact that can have, sometimes a life-changing impact. And who knows, right? You may hear down the road about the impact that call had. And I even saw, I think it was even today, that you posted something on your story about someone with a becoming a pharmacist and saying that you were the inspiration for them becoming a pharmacist, right? That
That
was
was
today,
today.
right? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
today. So I mean, there's another example, right? So I'll throw a little bonus spark moment in for you from yourself. But but one thing I want to share for everyone is that um, don't let those moments pass by.
Yeah.
Don't say no when that, say yes, like as Dr. Monica did, and be accepting and be open, because that's where the you said saiva
Seva.
seva, that's where the seva comes into that service comes into play, which is, service is a huge part of who I am. I have it tattooed on my arm.
Yeah.
And and if we aren't open, if we don't allow ourselves to give and to serve, then we'll miss those opportunities, and who knows how important that is for the other individual. It may seem like nothing to us, oh
Yeah.
no, I don't have time for the phone call or what have you, but it could mean the world to that other person.
It can change their life. It can give them that beacon of hope, and I often, when I talk, I say vulnerability is your superpower.
Mm.
Tears are your strength, you know? I remember, like, being ashamed of crying so much, and then here I am as an advocate, and I'm like, "No, don't stop those tears. Let them come out. It's a form of healing." Um, Share your story, you know? Like, it just takes one person to hear your story to change their life. It really does. There's one person out there in this world that needs to hear your story.
Yes, and with that, I hope that our audience will share their stories with others in the service of others, and that will help them. So I do want I know our audience is going to want to learn more about you. So I before we you share where they can connect with you, I want to ask about the upcoming children's book. So when is that coming out? What's the title, if you can share that, and maybe
Yes.
a little bit about the story?
Yeah. So, about a year ago, I was working with a TEDx coach, and we were just, writing up some material. And I kind of put that on the back burner, and I said to her, I said, I think I want to do a children's book. And it came to me in a meditation. And the reason why I wanted to do a children's book is when I was looking for a children's book on grief and mental health, I couldn't find anything that I could resonate with for my children or for myself. And coming from a South Asian background, it was just really, really hard to talk about mental health. So, yep, this book is called Finding Pockets of Sunshine,
Okay.
and based on a little girl named Anisha who is 8 years old, and she is going to navigate grief and loss. And it's going to take you on a beautiful journey of how she gets to the other side. And for me, it was so important to do a children's book and normalize talking about all these different emotions that children go through,
Hmm.
and we know there's so many different types of losses in life. There's so many types of mental health struggles in life. And to start conversations at a young age is so important, because by the time they get to teenage years, adolescent years, they know that they can talk about these things. They know that there's this tool that they can go to. They can seek help from a therapist or whatnot. So this project has been truly one of the most passion projects of my life. It's a beautiful journey of writing a children's book. I'm just it's soul filling for me. The launch is going to be next year, 2024, most likely around this time next year.
Well, perfect. Well, I know it will help lots of children find pockets of sunshine. So thank you for sharing about that. We'll for sure share details in the show notes, and then we'll update them as the book comes out. So,
Thank you.
so where's the best place for our audience to connect with you and to learn more about you and your work and the book and everything?
I am mostly on Instagram, so you can find me at Dr. Monica Farm D on Instagram. I am also on Facebook as well, but mostly all my interviews and podcasts and my work you will find in my link in bio and my link tree on Instagram.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll put that in the show notes as well. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Monica, for sharing all of your heart and your wisdom. Before we go, I have one final question that we ask all guests on the iSpark Change podcast, because our goal at iSpark Change is to positively impact 1 billion people within 5 years of launching our future social impact social media platform. And we know we can't do it alone. We know we need the help of impactful leaders like yourself to show others the way, because many people feel, as I used to, that they're too small to make a difference. And they're not sharing their story to make a difference, like you are. So we value your thoughts and opinions as a social impact hero. So I want to ask you to peer into the future, peer into the iSpark Change wall, and tell me, what can the world become if everyone starts sharing their story and believes that they can help others to positively impact our future?
Great question. I feel that the world would be a better place if we led with our hearts, if we shared our stories. We would lead with more empathy in the world versus pity or hatred. And I think stories connect us as humans. Stories save lives, stories change lives. I also think that gratitude, if we looked at things with a lens of gratitude, gratitude is a superpower. And I think we would live in a more positive and happier world if we looked through the lens of gratitude.
Well, definitely some wise words there. So thank you very much for sharing. I would love to see a more grateful, grateful world. That would be a beautiful thing. Well, thank you for taking time to share your heart and wisdom with our audience, Dr. Monica. You came in and you over delivered as I knew you would. Your desire to impact others is clearly evident. You're filled with passion, determination, and you lead with a heart of service and gratitude, which tells me you will continue to have success in all facets of life. And this is only the beginning of your social impact.
Thank you so much, Rick. I absolutely love the work that you're doing, and it was an honor for me to be here today. So thank you for the invitation.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. All right, Impact Heroes, it's our stories that connect us all, and we loved hearing Dr. Monica's today. Dr. Monica, you're not only an inspiring and amazing human being, you truly are an iSpark Chain's social impact hero. We'll see you all next time.
Do you want Rick to speak at your event? Here's what others have to say.
Did not know his story, and it was so inspirational, and his presence on stage, his authenticity was just incredible.
Performance made me feel some type of way. My name is Craig Siegel.
If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, hire Rick. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed.
Visit rickcornelis.com to book him today.
Remember, Impact Heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.